There is comfort in repetitive movement. A yogi would say, I am practicing yoga. Perfection is never the goal. The process and what we learn about ourselves along the way is what matters. Stitching is like that. We carefully select our fabric, choose just the right floss, and we gather our tools, the scissors and needles. Then we take a seat in our favorite chair and begin to stitch. The needle goes into the fabric and comes back out. It goes in and comes back out. Stitch by stitch, we make beauty and find comfort as we stitch. Turn on the camera and say hi to your FlossTube friends. Can you, oh wait, Arch, you gotta, there, you have to let your FlossTube friends right up there. See, they're right up there. Right there. Yay! Say hi, FlossTube friends. Nice to see everybody. This is Archie. He's my Scottish Terrier. I'm Jackie, and you have happened onto my channel or deliberately come to my channel called Comfort Stitching. How are you today? Today is Saturday, September 20th, 2025. Sorry, September 20th. How'd we get here already? Anyway, September 20th, 2025. This is episode 22 of Comfort Stitching. This is a channel all about cross stitch and some of the other things that I'm interested in or might get up to. Mostly we'll be talking about cross stitch though. I'm so glad you're here. It's a beautiful day where I live in Weston, Missouri. I'm just a little bit northwest of Kansas City. And gorgeous autumn day. Since I saw you last in, was it the end of August? I think it was. I was talking about how beautiful it was that day too. And then we kind of went into a couple of weeks of what may be like second summer. And now I think we're back to autumn again. And with the official start of autumn on Monday here in the United States in the Northern Hemisphere, we're finally going to get to autumn, which is my favorite time. Anyway, thanks for coming back. If you are a regular viewer or subscriber and you're back today, if you're new today, welcome. I'm really glad to have you. I hope you find something that you like here. And I know there are lots of options and more every day. New people sitting down in front of their cameras and talking about the things that they love about cross stitching. But thank you for being here. And I hope you'll like and subscribe if you like what you see. If you don't, no problem. There'll be somebody else that you probably do like, because we who do these floss tubes are as individual as every floss tube chart that, or excuse me, every cross stitch chart that's out there. And so there's always something for everyone. That was Archie that you saw. He is my 9-year-old brindle colored Scottish Terrier. Boy, does he need a haircut. He is looking so bushy and fluffy and scruffy. He has an appointment, but the groomer was really booked up, so I had to wait. And he's got another couple of weeks. And this time of year, you know, being a dog that's low to the ground, a low rider, as we like to jokingly say, boy, does he bring in the dry leaves and gets burrs stuck in his fur. So I have to really watch out for that. So as much as I love autumn, it's a little challenging having a dog with a skirt and being able to walk outside and all of the things that come along with that. So thank you so much, everybody, for your wonderful comments from my last video. I showed a finish of a sampler that I had worked on, since the first of the year. Actually, it was a sampler that I restarted at the beginning of the year. I had originally started it last year about this same time and restarted. It's a sampler called Julia Rachel de la Mer by Cross Stitch Antiques. Anyway, last time I showed you my finish of it and talked over a color conversion that I did on it and really the lengths that I went to get some of the colors that I got. But anyway, thank you so much for all of your lovely compliments and comments on that sampler. And I know that probably my description of the conversion that I did was probably a little bit more in depth than maybe some people were into. So I know some of you skipped ahead, you told me so, and that's totally fine. That's why now that I know how to make chapters in my videos, that's why I name them, so you can skip the parts that are not interesting and maybe skip ahead to parts that are interesting. But for those of you who waited through that, I appreciate it. And I know, because a couple of you have told me, that you have, after watching that, had the courage to maybe step outside your comfort zone a little bit and try changing a few colors in your own work. And I can't tell you how gratified that makes me feel to know that I might have inspired you to do that. So I really appreciate hearing that. And I love reading all of the comments that you guys share, the questions that you might have, or just the ideas that you have, or you sometimes see channels or are reading books that you think might be interesting to me. I love hearing that kind of stuff. So please do comment. I appreciate it. And so with that said, let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today. I have a couple of things that I've been working on, some progress to show you. One thing that I have very little progress, but two things that sort of go together. So I'm going to show you even a teeny bit of progress on something. I have a new start. I finished something, so I have a new start. And then I've got, looking at my piles over here, I have some Stitchy Kindness to share, some haul, of course, or some stash enhancement, I like to call it, and some plans that I want to talk about with you. So let's get right on into it. It's obviously September, and a lot of folks are participating in what's called Sampler September, or September Sampler Soiree, I think it might be on Instagram. Around here, it's samplers almost all the time anyway. So yeah, I've been working on samplers, but I just really love samplers because of the connection to history. And if I can find a sampler that has, maybe a story that goes along with it, thankfully, we have a lot of designers that like to do that kind of thing and look for the stitcher that originally stitched it and can kind of share that information. And if I can't find that, I often look for that too. So the things I have today actually do have a little bit of history that go along with them. So that just kind of helps really, I guess I would say, enhance my stitching experience. When I have more than just the stitching or the design that I'm working on, I can really get more of a semblance of a story that goes along with what I'm doing. And that's what I really enjoy. So let me talk first about a new start that I have. And this one was somewhat of a something that I probably wouldn't have ever said that or thought that I would stitch, but I am stitching this. And this is a chart called America 250. This is what it is right here. Got the fan on in here. Anyway, this is by Plum Street Samplers, and it was an exclusive to the attendees of the most recent summer school retreat that was held at the Attic. I believe it was maybe mid-August. Anyway, the reason why it's sort of a maybe unexpected, I'll say, design for me to do is because I haven't ever considered myself, a person who stitches towards any specific holiday, and I'm just not usually influenced that way. I'm influenced by a design. And I don't think as yet in my stitching comeback. I started stitching again in 2023. I haven't stitched anything that is quote unquote patriotic stitching. But this design just really spoke to me. I saw it on social media. I have friends who were down at summer school, and I was not. I saw it on social media, and I was originally, or almost immediately, drawn to the design. Now, obviously, you know, there's history here, all of the symbolism. A lot of people have begun stitching something to commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the American Declaration of Independence. And, you know, that not necessarily that it wasn't my thing, but so far I hadn't seen a particular design that I felt the need to stitch. But like I said, this one spoke to me. And before summer school was even over, I was texting a friend of mine who was there, and I said, hey, has Paulette Stewart, the designer, has she said when this might be released to the general public? And my friend said, no, that wasn't part of her presentation at all. But in the same conversation, my friend said, I'm not going to stitch it right away. Would you like to borrow it? I'll send it to you when I get home. And I said, yes, please. So anyway, that's how I come to have this, from the generosity of a friend who is at summer school. So nearly as soon as I got this chart in the mail, I was kitting it up and ready to start it. So I have this to show you, and then I will talk about it a little bit more. So here is my start on America 250. Hoping you can see that. So I am not stitching this on the called for fabric, and I sort of am stitching it with the called for threads. If you've been here before, that you know that's par for the course for me. So what I have done for this was I pulled the called for flosses, so they're here, as well as I've made some substitutions and alterations. So here's all of that. Obviously very, you know, red, white, and blue, but almost with a kind of antique-y look, because there's no bright red, there's no primary red, blue, or even bright white. So I have so when I am thinking about changing colors on something, as yet, I haven't done a complete color conversion. I haven't looked at something. Well, wait, I'm going to take that back, because something I'm going to show you I did change. But with a design like this that has multiple different colors in it, I have never changed every one of them. Generally, when I look at something, I do pull all of the called for colors if I have them. And this chart, like many, has both a DMC component to it, as well as a few overdyed flosses. So you could do this all in DMC, but this one is a combination of DMC and overdyed flosses. So how I approach it is to pull all the DMC and the overdyed if I have them, and in this case I had all but one. And I was kind of looking at them, and let me see if it's, so you can see here, DMC and overdyed. So it's just, I look at kind of like, what's the primary called for colors? And it is a mix of DMC and overdyed. So that's kind of how I was looking at it. And then as I was kind of looking at the colors together, I thought, well, I'm not quite sure I like that overdyed with that DMC or vice versa. And so I just started pulling things from my stash that were similar. And a couple of the colors I thought, well, I'm kind of surprised that that was chosen for that place. One of them is that kind of orangey red color on that flower. A color called Tennessee Red Clay was called for on that. The ones I have were actually fairly pink. And when I looked at the image on the chart and kind of what I was seeing on the model that a friend posted from summer school, that color looked a little more orangish. So I just started trying to make mine look more like what I was seeing again. And so I can talk more about that if anybody's interested. I pulled a color in cotton color for that orangey color called Old Brick. That just worked, I thought, well. I don't think I do have one other color in cotton color I'm using for the black. I love a color called Featherweight. So I've got that in here. That's this one. It's kind of a, what would you call it? Kind of a primitive, I guess, black. I do have a couple of NPIs that I'm using in here, but for the most part, it's going to end up looking like that chart and like what it's intended to be. So this is where I start, generally up in the upper left-hand corner, and work my way around. This sampler is just full of history about the beginning of our country as we come to know it during that time when we were becoming independent from British rule, what kind of started that, taxation without representation, the Boston Tea Party. There's symbolism in here from the Stamp Act, which I'm sure I learned about that in American history, but didn't remember it. The Liberty Bell is on here. Freedom Hall is on here. There's an amazing eagle on here. So I am thinking a lot as I stitch this about the meanings of the words freedom and independence and equality and liberty. And we are in, I felt like it was kind of ironic. I was stitching on this last week when there were a lot of really challenging things happening in the United States and around the world for that matter. And I'm not gonna get specific about that because I think everybody knows. It's not important for me to talk about with regard to this. I just found it really interesting that I was working on a chart that was about freedom, independence, and equality as the things that are happening in our nation and around the world are actually happening. I don't believe necessarily in coincidences. I think everything is kind of happening as it should. But yeah, this is what I'm working on right now. And I was really enjoying stitching on this. I kind of didn't want to put it down because I was having such a good time with the colors. I stitch generally on linen. This happens to be a 40 count linen in a color called Affogato by Fiber on a Whim. I did have the called for linen, which was Smoky Quartz, also by Fiber on a Whim. I pulled that out to see what it looked like, and it's really quite gray, and gray just doesn't really work in my environment. I really wanted this to be more on kind of a I don't know, warmer fabric, kind of parchmenty. So I chose to change the linen on this too. But that's my new start. America 250 by Plum Street Samplers. And I hope, you know, what generally happens when you get something at a retreat is that it's exclusive to the retreat and the people who attended for a year, and then it goes on a more general release. With this being the subject matter that it is, and the 4th of July being that 250th anniversary, I'm hoping that Paulette puts it out earlier. I don't know though. Like I said, there really wasn't any information, as far as I'm aware, that that was going to happen. But I hope so, because it's a really worthwhile design for us to be stitching right now, and subject matter for us to be thinking about right now, wherever you live, because every day the headlines are such that those are things that I think should be uppermost on people's minds. And oh, one thing I do want to tell you about this too, that you'll see as I go along, down at the bottom of this is the beginning of the preamble of the Declaration of Independence. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident." And I'm actually going to add a line to that. I've already charted it, and I've kind of altered my design down at the bottom a little bit. I'm going to add that all men and women are created equal, because I feel like in a way that's kind of why there are some of the conflicts that we have right now, is that not all people are feeling that way. There's discrimination of one kind or another. And I think if we realize that we all really are equal and deserve equal opportunities, that maybe some of the conflicts that are going on might not even be there, or might diminish. So anyway, yeah, I'm going to be adding to mine that all men and women are created equal. America 250 by Plum Street Samplers. A new start for me, and I'm enjoying working on that. I hope more of you, if those of you who were at summer school, I hope you've started it. I think you will really enjoy it if you haven't. And I think everybody will enjoy working on that if they have the opportunity to. Next, I've almost, but not quite, gone back to my monogamous stitching ways. I spent like a whole week on that one. And then I spent a week on another sampler, this time a Quaker sampler that I've been working on. And this one is called Ragamuffin 2 by Shakespeare's Peddler. This is the cover of that chart. Now this one I got as a PDF. That's why I have a color copy. And the other one that I just showed you, that was a color copy as well, just simply because that chart's on loan to me, and I don't want to risk damaging the chart in any way, so I photocopied the cover of it. But this one is a PDF I'm working. I do print mine because I like paper charts, but that's why I have a color copy though, because it was a PDF I downloaded. Once again, I'm influenced by the called for colors. I'm using some of them, but I'm also changing a few up too. So these are my colors that I'm working with. And let me show you what I've got so far. This one is on a relatively larger, compared to the last one, larger piece of linen. So let me wrangle that a little bit. Here we go. I've been working on this for 2 or 3 months, I think. This is 40 count linen also. This is a Picture This Plus color called Vellum. And once again, I started in the upper left and worked my way across. Since I saw you last, I finished the second line of the alphabets over here, and I finished the numbers over here and brought down the side borders quite a bit. This side just a couple, but this side I brought that down quite a bit. This is, as I said, 40 count Picture This Plus vellum linen, and I'm using one floss thread over 2 linen threads, and it was the same for that America 250 as well. Really enjoying this, and I'll be working on the alphabets for a little while yet, because as you can see, there's still quite a bit to go there. These capital ones are all, I think they're Smyrna crosses or eyelets. And I'll probably do eyelets. I like eyelets. But this is a Quaker style sampler, and it's not the common medallion style Quaker that we generally see. This is another style of Quaker. And this is not a true reproduction. This was a fragment, or a Teresa Vanette called it a ragamuffin because it was a damaged a piece of a sampler that she got. And based on her research and knowledge of Quaker samplers, she filled in some of the motifs and the alphabet. So this is inspired by a Quaker sampler and based on an actual sampler, but not a true reproduction because the whole thing wasn't available to her. And I'm really enjoying this one too. This is, I have said all along, if you've been with me for a while, I've been stitching this and another Quaker. There's something very meditative about Quaker samplers, particularly all stitching. You know, that's one of the things I love about them. But there's something really meditative and I think quiet about this one. And I could make guesses why. You know, the colors are very calming, the softness of the green and the golds, and there's a lot of kind of ghosted images in that I haven't got to yet. Those are probably going to become kind of maybe a soft pink. That I think is what I'll use in there. But there's a quietness to some of the colors. There'll be a little pops of red in this, predominantly though softer colors. There's the border has that sort of seesaw or kind of rocking motion to it, and it's not regular, so you really have to concentrate and count on that to do it. And anytime you have to pause and really count, your brain comes into present time and you become quiet to do that. So anyway, I'm really enjoying this and looking forward to, of course, getting down into some of the motifs, but also I love stitching alphabets too. And I have a couple of books I want to show you a little bit later on as we chat today, where I found some more Quaker samplers that are very similar in style to this. And I hadn't seen any before. You know, we are so used to the medallion style Quaker samplers, which I have to show you next, that anything that kind of deviates from that medallion style, we might not readily identify as being Quaker. But when you start looking at some of the other ones and reading about them, you can definitely see the stylistic distinctions that start to appear in those. And so that's been really interesting to me as I've gone along working on that one and this next one, is to really be learning more about specific styles of samplers and where they might have come from. That's what kind of lights me up about samplers as well, is putting them in context of not only the people that might have done them, learning about the people who might have made them, but the context of when they were stitched, where they were stitched, and how that environment or those circumstances that the folks were in might have influenced what they were stitching. Because that's what's happening to us today. The things going on around us are influencing the designers and the things that we're choosing to stitch when we choose to stitch them. So it all comes around full circle. The next thing I worked on was, and this one I just have a teeny bit of progress, but because I was talking about Quaker samplers, I wanted to show you this one also, is called the Beatrix Potter Quaker sampler. This is by Stitchy Box. This too was something I downloaded as a PDF and just printed off, so I'm working from a printed copy. I have not gotten into stitching off of a device. I'm kind of old school. I like to mark off my charts as I go with highlighters, and I even will tape all of my pages together so that I have the whole thing, and I end up, folding it up, and I use clothespins to hold everything kind of compact so I can work from a small area. But I'm old school that way. I just am a tactile person when it comes to art and the things that I make, and so I just like to have the paper when I'm working. But this one I've been working on for a little while. If you've been here before, you've seen it before. This is my progress here. Hoping that you're seeing it. Yep. So as I said, this one doesn't have a lot of progress, but last time we were together, this had just a little start on it, so I finished that motif. And I popped over here to a motif that's over here on the side and got that in. And the reason I did is, it made more sense to do the motif that would come next there, but there's a counting error. So, and I don't know where. It's just like one stitch, one row, because I did start that motif and I discovered that counting error, and I thought, oh yeah, I could leave it in. But once again, I would have to remember from now on that that is not where it should be, and anything that came after it would not line up. And I just didn't want to have to do that. So I decided to come over to the side and put one of the side medallions in. So this is the area of the chart that I'm talking about. So I just got a little start on that motif right there. This one was charted from an antique sampler, not ever stitched by Beatrix Potter, but it hangs sometimes in her house in England, and it was part of her collection. I have read a good bit about her now and seen several documentaries, and have found out that she had friends who were Quakers, and likely this was a gift from one of her friends. So it was charted in a DMC color that was kind of, it says peach or pumpkin spice, it was DMC 356. And when I pulled that color, it just really wasn't to my taste. It was kind of peachy corally type of color. And as you can see, I decided to make mine in kind of gold colors. So I did do a conversion when I was talking about conversions more towards the beginning. Today, I have done a conversion, which is, since this is all monochromatic, that's, you know, not hard to do. You can either do it in one color, of course, or I just decided to do it in a family of colors in all kind of old gold. I just pulled from my stash, and as I've been working on this, I've been gifted 2 or 3 skeins that go along with this, so they work their way into this. So I've got dinky dye silk, I've got over dyed cotton, I've got Belle Soie silk in here, I've got a Gloriana silk has just been added, and I've got DMC. So they're all playing together on my Beatrix Potter Quaker sampler. This one, I know I didn't tell you, is being stitched on 46 count fabric, which I really enjoy stitching on. 40 and 46, I would say, are my comfort zone. And this linen color is called Moon Shadow, and it's by Seraphim. I really like it. It's a very light neutral, but there is a little bit of modeling in it. And this is 1 floss thread over 2 linen threads. So coming along. And I wish I had gotten a chance to do a little more on this, but I was actually dealing with an injury this week. So repetitive stress injury, no less. Maybe some of you have had it. Have you ever heard of something called cubital tunnel syndrome? Carpal tunnel syndrome is very common. And what I have come to learn is cubital tunnel syndrome is the next most common repetitive stress issue. And I was having some pain and tingling and numbness in my ring finger and pinky finger of the hand that I hold my needle with. Now, I don't pinch my needle tight or anything. So it's not really a hand issue. It was coming from a nerve impingement that runs through your elbow, through the ulnar nerve. And but it's a nerve that originates, of course, from the spine, but up in the neck area. And I believe for me that that's where it was originating, because I wasn't having tenderness in my elbow. And in what I had read, and I didn't go to a doctor, but Dr. Google was pretty obvious on this one, what was going on with me. And I looked at some videos to try and find things that would help. And you can see I'm pulling my shoulder up. So when I stitch, it was partly to do with my stitching posture, I think, but it's having your arm in this flexed position for prolonged periods of time. And it's something, of course, that in our day and age, you know, we're holding phones, or if you work at a computer at your job or with a mouse, it's a common place to get some inflammation in there that pinches off that nerve as it goes through your elbow. So that same nerve that we might hit when we say that we've hit our funny bone, not anything really funny about it, but it's that same area that gets the impingement in it and then causes numbness all the way up into the hand. So it was here for me. If it had been in the other half of my hand, that would have been carpal tunnel, but it was over here. And I also, when I sleep, I'm a side sleeper. I have my arms, this one drawn up. But when I stitch, after observing myself, I realize that when I'm looking through my magnifier, my body might start to lean over this way, but my neck is leaning over this way to stay looking through my magnifier, and my arm is, you know, I'm just really bad posture. That's basically what it comes down to, is that I need to be a little bit more conscientious about my posture. So I found some stretches that I could do. I really needed to, you know, stretch, get this part of my arm stretched out a little bit, so that, you know, stretch out your arm and pull back and pull forward. So, and I also like to use kinesiology tape to help give some support and help with just, some gentle pulling the skin away from the area, helps blood flow move through an area a little bit more freely. That has helped me frequently. So I had it taped up for a while this week, and it resolved for me within about 36 to 48 hours. But I really have realized that hours and hours of bad posture in our stitching, which we love to do, can affect you. So I need to be more mindful about that. And I bring it up because maybe that's something that if you haven't encountered it yet, you might. And it doesn't require surgery. I mean, if it gets really bad and becomes unresolvable through some stretching and postural and behavioral changes, then of course it might. But yeah, just some stretching and anti-inflammatories is what worked for me to help resolve it. But that's what prevented me from making a whole lot more progress on this one, because it's usually like 3 weeks between videos for me. So the first week I worked on the Ragamuffin. The second week I worked on America 250. And then I was going to work on this, and I had to spend some time healing. So while I was doing that, though, I was looking at some books and watching FlossTube, of course, and just keeping myself inspired with stitching. And which brings me to a couple of things with regard to this Beatrix Potter. Let's see. This would have been Instagram. I had a follow suggestion, like the algorithm likes to tell you, here's a page you might like or a person you might be interested in following. I was suggested the Beatrix Potter Society. And I said, well, yeah, because I've been trying to learn about Beatrix Potter and enjoyed learning more about her as a person and her life and her contributions to conserving the area where she lived in the Lake District. But anyway, I started following that page, and they were showing like some first edition of her books and some other sketches and things that she had done. And I decided to write them a private message or just message them on Instagram to tell them that I was working on this sampler and that I had been looking for photographs or a photograph of it actually hanging in her house. And I had not been able to locate anything that put it in her house. I'd seen it as part of a museum exhibition. A friend shared an image of it that was part of her collection of art and artifacts that was traveling. And I had seen reference to it in a couple of sampler books that I have, but I had never actually seen a photograph of this Quaker sampler hanging in her house. And so I was asking them, the Beatrix Potter Society, if they could give me any information about that at all. And they did. So I finally have gotten to see it, and I'm going to put a picture of it up here. They sent me a photograph of it that they had. Now, the National Trust is who takes care of Beatrix Potter's house and land holdings. And this was, I was told, a brochure from the tour of her house that the National Trust had at one time. I don't know if this brochure is still current. I think they told me it was from 2023. But anyway, I see it hanging in her bedroom. And I kind of knew that that's where it was from another image that I had seen of it with some William Morris wallpaper in the background. And I showed you this one other time, this book, At Home with Beatrix Potter. This was a book that was recommended to me by my friend Heidi. But in here, I was really hoping I would find it. And we came close. This is, for those of you who don't know, this is Hilltop House where Beatrix Potter lived. And the William Morris wallpaper is in her bedroom. This is a picture of her bedroom. Sorry about the glare. I've got a window just to my left. And there is a photograph of this bedroom that has a cross-stitch sampler hanging on it, but it's not the Quaker. And here is that. You can see there's a cross-stitch sampler there, but this is not the Quaker. But when I saw an image of that sampler, it had that wallpaper. So I knew that's where it had to have been from, was her bedroom. And the Beatrix Potter Society confirmed that for me. So I love finally being able to put context to this and to have been able to see it hanging in the room where it always hung when she was alive and would have been living, and enjoying that as a gift from one of her beloved friends. Because if it was in her bedroom, I'm sure it had some special meaning to her beyond being gorgeous. So anyway, that's the Beatrix Potter Quaker sampler. And I know some of you are stitching this along either with me or have been inspired by me, like my friend Shelly, Antique Needleworker Shelly. She's gotten into working on this one too, and reading about Beatrix Potter and watching documentaries about it. Like I said, knowing who did these things or where they came from or at what time period they came from, just for me, just enriches the experience of working on them. And I am just enjoying that. I've got a few things that I'm working on now. I used to really spend a lot of time, concentrated time, on just one or two things, but I've got more now. And I've got friends who rib me about that a lot, but I'm happy to work on one thing for any length of time, but I'm also glad I've got a variety of things that I'm working on also. So that's really my stitching progress that I have to share today, but certainly not everything that I want to say about samplers, because again, we're in Sampler September, and it just had me thinking a lot about samplers and the variety of styles of samplers that there are. From the historical ones from, different areas have very specific design styles. And then you've got contemporary ones that are completely new and original designs, or like that Ragamuffin 2 one that's inspired by an antique and kind of reimagined. And I have told you in the past that I belong to a couple of Facebook groups. There's a couple of stash and load sites which I get a lot of my linen from, but there's a really good Facebook group that's all about samplers that I would recommend to you. Many of you might be members already, but it is called I think it's Our Sampler Years. It might be a secondary line. I'll try and put it on the screen here, but it definitely starts with Our Sampler Years. The moderator of that is a gal named Krista Gramer. And every weekend she has a kind of a theme prompt for people to post samplers that fit a particular theme. Like last weekend was all about French samplers. And this weekend, September 20th, 2025 is Dutch samplers. She's had English samplers before. She's had just really other band samplers, I think was a couple of weeks ago. Anyway, it's a fun thing to look at because some people post antique samplers that are in their own collections. There are a lot of people who are in this group that are very, very knowledgeable and sometimes scholars and experts in the sampler world that are posting images on that group and also doing reproductions that they post progress photos in that group. But it's a really inspiring Facebook group. And I know social media anymore as a whole gets a bad rap, but a lot of times people are really down on Facebook. But when you are in a group that is focused on a hobby that you're really passionate about, you can be really inspired and influenced and, by charts based on things that you've seen in some of those Facebook groups. So I would, if you're on Facebook or wondering, maybe I should just get rid of Facebook group, just join a group that you really like, and I would recommend that one, Our Sampler Years, because there's a lot of good inspiration there. And I was inspired to buy something, which I will talk about here in a sec. So, but now I want to talk about a freebie that I have, also a sampler, a freebie that I have, and it is from my friend Ray Niles, who is a sampler reproduction designer, and her company is called Red Barn Samplers, and this is the freebie. It is called Eliza Macy, a Nantucket sampler. Now this is one that, Ray was at summer school, and she presented this to all of the attendees of summer school. But you can, she gave them all a hard copy, and that's what she sent to me. Obviously, I've got it here. But you can download this as a PDF if this is something that's interesting to you. And she did have some history on this that I thought was interesting, why it was relevant. Now, summer school this year was all about patriotic and American samplers and designs and charts and information. And this one was connected to Nantucket. It was something that Jean Lee had seen and specifically asked Ray to chart. Ray doesn't own this one. It was somebody else did, and Ray did the charting of it for them. But I'll just read what it says in here. In January 2025, Mary Tobias shared her small Nantucket sampler with Jean Lee, the owner of the attic. Jean was very excited to support Mary and offered an opportunity for Mary to share it at summer school in August 2025. The theme for summer school was From Sea to Shining Sea, a star-spangled summer school. Jean pointed out the sampler stitched by Eliza Macy would be a great addition to summer school, particularly with connections to two well-known surnames found in the United States, Macy and Starbuck. Sadly, a few weeks later, Jean passed away, and following Jean's passing, Mary reached out to Ray to see if she might be interested in charting it for her. And the goal was always to offer it as a complimentary chart, symbolizing the love and support that Jean shared with so many stitchers throughout the years. So enjoy this sampler as a reminder of Jean's love and encouragement. And so the provenance that Ray adds to this sampler, it says it was Eliza A. Macy, was born February 6th, 1806, had an older sister. She was the older sister of Lydia Macy, who was born March 19th, 1807. And so Eliza's sister Lydia married William B. Starbuck, and so was the great-grandmother of Martha, John, and Ruth of the Starbucks fame. So two, Macy's and Starbucks, two great institutions, if you will, here in America and around the world for that matter. So I want to thank Ray for giving me this one, and then also I can share it with you. And if you would like to download this, that's available from Ray's website, redbarnsamplers.com. That information and anything I talk about, I try and put links to in the description box that is below my video. So you can, I do my best to put information in there because I know a lot of you have questions. And so I try and be thorough in my description box and give you information and links to the things that I do talk about. So that is one bit of Stitchy Kindness, I will say. And I got a couple of other things from a couple of friends. One lady who lives in the Kansas City area, Gwen is her name, and she has been to all of my Stitch With Me gatherings at Flora Legion. She offered me up some Belle Soie silks that were duplicates in her stash. And I don't have a lot of overdyed silks yet, but boy, Gwen is making sure that I do, because look at all these beautiful silks that she sent me. So all sorts of, and like I said, she told me these were all duplicates in her stash. So I want to thank my friend Gwen for being so generous and offering me additions to my thread stash. They're all beautiful colors that I can definitely see being colors that I would use in samplers. That's Gwen's focus too, is samplers, so definitely sampler colors here. Gorgeous Belle Soie silks. So thank you, Gwen, for those. I've had them all laying on my table in my studio until I showed them to you, so then now I can put them in the closet with my other stash. So I have a friend that I stitch with as part of a small friend Zoom group on Friday nights named Campbell. She has a channel called Stitch Therapy, and she sent me some even weave that she got. She likes to Facebook market shop and garage sale shop, so this is just some 28 count even weave in a natural or mushroom color. Now, I know a lot of people use even weave in 28 count to do over one stitching. And I have, what is it? It's Brenda Gervais, the Abecedarian, Lessons in Abecedarian, I think it is. That some small pillows that were stitched, I believe, on 28 count even weave. So when Campbell offered this up to me, I said, yes, please. So look for that sometime in the future when I have an opportunity to start something new. And if it strikes my fancy, I will do that. So the other gift I was given this week, or since I've seen you last, was actually a candle. So again, why am I talking about candles? Well, if you were here in my last video, I did talk about a candle that I had gotten, a fragrance that I'd gotten from a candle company called Lit Brit Candles. There was a fragrance called Calligraphy that I loved, and I had used as a gift for some attendees to one of my Stitch With Me days. And the owner of Lit Brit Candle Company was amazed at how many of you reached out to him and bought your own candles. So first of all, he was blown away by you guys. So David from Lit Brit says, thank you. And he just could not believe how many of you bought candles. So thank you from David. But as a thank you to me for mentioning his company, he sent me another one. So this one is called Somerset Cider. And I left it specifically in the packaging because he does really nice packaging. And this one is an autumn scent that is apples and I'm going to show you this. Beautiful candle. Let me see what it says. Sunset drapes the orchard hills as steam rises from a vintage glass of mulled cider, filling the air with inviting warmth of ripe apples, aromatic spices, and velvety vanilla. Anyway, thank you, you guys. He does have them, I know, for a little while. It looked like the calligraphy candles were sold out. They're not. He was going on a trip, so he just put everything that you couldn't order, but I think he changed that. Anyway, he's back. Calligraphy is available again. This one, if you like fall scents, beautiful. The quality of his work here is amazing. So Lit Brit Candle Company. He's a British guy living in the state of Washington, making amazing candles. So go get you some. And next, I have some stash enhancement specific. As I am wont to do, got a bunch of floss from the Color and Cotton company. And they have some beautiful overdyed floss, first of all. They also do really beautiful hand-dyed linens. I do have a couple of pieces of their linen in my stash. I have not stitched anything on them yet, but I do stitch frequently with their floss, and I really like it. They have started doing gradient sets of colors, and this one I got, this gradient set, is called the Princess Gradient Set. And it is, I got one of them on here in the wrong order. But as you can see, it's a pale pink all the way to a deep red. I have taken them off and then I put them back on here to show you. I didn't get them in the right order. This princess color I used in the Julia Rachel de la Mere sampler. I coffee dyed it, but these other ones, just gorgeous, gorgeous colors. So I wanted to show you that. These are available generally all the time on their website. And they do different gradient sets that are limited edition ones too. But this, I know that for a fact, this pink one's always on offer there. And then I got a bunch of other colors from them. I showed you already the brick color that I was using in America 250. And I got a variety of other colors from them. So I have an inventory, a cross-stitch inventory app on my phone called XStitch Plus. And so I can have all my floss and linens inventoried. And so what I have been doing with Color and Cotton, and my other thread for that matter, is I have it all in that app. And with Color and Cotton, since I'm building stash with them, is I will just get on their website periodically and just go through their floss list and just randomly choose colors that I know I will use, or you know, you need neutrals and creams, so I always pick a couple of those. in sampler stitching, you use a lot of olivey green, brown, orangey, pink, reds. The antique rose is pretty. Anyway, I just randomly order stuff from them and add it to my stash. And I'm getting a really good collection now. So I got some, since we saw each other last, Color and Cotton. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think their store is the only place that you can get their thread. I think other online retailers might sometimes have their linen, but I think their floss is only available through their store or their website. So I would highly recommend that too. I mentioned that I'm on a couple of different stash unloading Facebook groups. So I got a piece of linen. I've got quite a linen stash anymore, so I don't buy as much linen as I used to. But I did get this piece. This is Picture This Plus Wren. And I pulled a couple of DMCs that it's sort of like. 612 and 3782. Let me see if I can try and get, there's a good rendition. Now, this linen, I have to say, is very close in color to the Fiber on a Whim Affogato that I'm using for my America 250. I was surprised how close in color those two linens are. So if you have a hard time finding Affogato and might wonder what a good substitute is, Picture This Plus Wren. Sometimes Affogato can have a lot of green in it. This does not. This is a little warmer, but overall in tone, it's very similar to the Affogato. So this is Picture This Plus Wren. And let's see. I've got America 250 here, so I can kind of show you that. So it looks like, I mean, on screen here, my Affogato is kind of a little bit lighter, but truly, in real life, they're very, very similar. I would not hesitate to, you can see again, this is the light coming in my window and the camera changing the way these look, because now this one looks a little darker. Anyway, I think they would be very easily interchangeable, and that would be a very happy substitution, one for the other, if you would want to ever do that for anything. All right, that's the addition to my linen. I picked up latest issue of Just Cross Stitch magazine. I have been getting this one. I'm not a subscriber to this. I should. But I have been getting this one because they've had a stitch along going all year. Let me find the page. That's a kind of a seasonal stitch along. Here it is. This one is called Nature's Journey. Now, of course, this is only showing the latest installment on this page, but already what has been released is the spring and the summer, and now we're getting autumn in here. And someday I might do this. So that's why I've been getting this magazine specifically for that particular chart. And one other bit of haul that also, no, wait, I have something other really cute that I want to show you. A few weeks ago, when I had my Stitch With Me gathering at Florilegium, there were several people that had their decorated stitchy boxes. So fun to see all of those. And the stuff that people are choosing to put inside and enhance their stitching experience with. But one gal, who was it? Jane, Susan XStitch's mom, Jane, had these floss bobbins in her box. Aren't they adorable? So I said, Jane, where do I get some of those? And where you can get some of those is here. PNB Making Memories on Etsy. PNB Making Memories on Etsy. Aren't they cute? And they have some other floss bobbins as well that are wooden ones, but I loved this little kind of vintagey. She reminded me like of 1920s. And you know, I used to work for Mary Englebright, and that reminded me of those too. And I just could think of decorating a couple of these with some tartan ribbon to put in my Scottish themed tartan stitchy box. So I wanted to share how cute those were from PNB Making Memories on Etsy. Cute, cute, cute as can be. A friend of mine used to say that. A friend of mine from Hallmark used to say that. Cute, cute, cute as can be. So let's see. A couple other, just quick, because I mentioned a couple of books I had on samplers that I never showed you before. Now these are available on the secondary market. They've been out a while. Girlhood Embroidery, American Samplers and Pictorial Needlework. These are, it's 2 volumes by Betty Ring. I got both of them. I got these on Etsy, and they're not hugely expensive for what they are. I think I paid $65 for these 2 hardcover books that are filled with information. I mean, you know, history of samplers, if that's something you're interested in. That's what you're going to get with these books. So I'd highly recommend, if they aren't already on your library bookshelf. But the reason I'm bringing them up today is because, as I said, when I was having some issues with my hand this week, I was looking through these and was finding in the volume 2 one some what I could obviously tell were Quaker samplers that really looked like that Ragamuffin one. And I'd been mostly looking at the medallion Quaker samplers before and hadn't really seen any examples of samplers that were more like the Ragamuffin one with the kind of soft floral bouquets and baskets. But there were some in this book, and I want to show you. Here's one right here. And that one was a Quaker work from, known to be from the Delaware Valley area. And here's another one right there. The provenance on this one is also Delaware Valley. So I don't think in Ragamuffin 2, Teresa knew of the provenance for that sampler that she had. I don't remember reading it in the description, but it kind of makes me wonder now, having seen those, that both were so similar in style. We're both from the Delaware Valley Quaker schools. One was the Westtown School, I know for sure, which is a pretty famous Quaker school, and I think the other one was a smaller school, not as well known. But anyway, I was really pleased to get, again, some evidence that places something I'm working on more concretely for me into an area and a specific time. So I just love that kind of thing. So I think with that, I'm looking at my notes, I'm going to go on to plans, and then I have just a couple of floss tubers I want to talk about, and I have kind of an inspirational quote to share today as we wind down and close up. So plans I have, I have been working all year on a stitch along with my friend Sarah, who has a channel called Sew Me Sarah. Sarah is from Northern Ireland. We have been working on a Barbara Anna chart called the 4 Seasons, and it's comprised of these 4 girls. In the chart you get them, they can either line up like this, or you can do them individually, which I have been doing. And we've been starting each one at the official start of each season. So we are now up to the autumnal equinox. As I said, it's on Monday, and we're getting ready to start this girl, the autumn girl. So I have been stitching mine on different colors of fabric. Last 2 I've done have been on the same color. The first one I did, the winter one, I did on a blue fabric. This autumn girl I'm gonna do on this fabric right here, which is a Picture This Plus fabric also. This one is called Velt. It is more gold than it's showing on screen, but it does definitely have green running through it as well. And it has such an autumnal quality to it that I thought this girl with all these red, brown, rusty brown colors would look really nice on that. So I'm getting ready to start that. I told Sarah, she messaged me this morning telling me she was excited to get started on that. And I told her I might jump the gun just a little bit, because officially here where I am in Missouri, the autumnal equinox happens at 1:19 p.m. on Monday. I'm going to be at work, so I won't be able to stitch. And I think I might start it. Now, hers will be tomorrow because, of course, they're ahead of us. She'll be stitching hers on Sunday. So I think I might start mine tomorrow on Sunday with Sarah, and we'll get a start on the autumnal girl. So our stitch along, we do have a hashtag if some of you are stitching along and sharing your progress on Instagram. Our hashtag is the hashtag symbol BA, the number 4 seasons, SAL, BA 4 seasons SAL. So we'll officially begin her this weekend or Monday if you want to join us. Or if you're just seeing this for the first time and you want to get this chart, it's available from Barbara Anna's Ko-Fi shop, and I always put a link to that in the description box below. So I hope you'll join us for the Autumn Girl or any of the ones you might want to do. So I'm excited about that as far as plans go. I also, in my haul, which I haven't shown you this yet, I got another new chart that was heavily influenced by something I saw in that our Sampler Years Facebook group. So there are some chart designers that post in that group too who are sampler reproductionists, and one of those is Reflets de Soie. They have beautiful, beautiful French samplers that they have charted and will often show us in that Facebook group. And of course, last week, as I said, we were all seeing French samplers. That was the theme. Isabel, I think her name is, the designer for Reflets de Soie, presented a new one and said that the chart was going to be coming out this week. And when it was released, I downloaded it immediately. I got the PDF immediately. And this one is called Leah Letourneur 1894. Now again, this is, like I said, a PDF, so it's a little hard to see. I'm going to put a picture up because it's so beautiful. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, I need to stitch that. And I have a birthday coming up on the last day of the month, and I can't guarantee, I think I might, if I can get all my threads together, start this as a birthday start. So if anybody else has got this chart, I would love to have you stitch with me. I'll of course post it on Instagram if I do start that. I think I might. Anyway, that one is such a beautiful sampler. All of, you know, French samplers is not something I know a lot about. I have another red sampler that I'm working on that is a French one, full of beautiful alphabets. It's called Antoinette 1894 to 1896. But every time I see a French sampler, either the beautiful red ones or these more elaborate samplers, it's again a very distinct style that comes out of France. It just makes me wonder, you know, what influenced these? And I reached out to Isabel and asked her that very same thing. She said, I'll get back to you. I'm busy with the release of this right now, but I'll get back to you. So I'm looking forward to learning more about what might have been going on in France in the late 1800s, because I think most of the ones that I see that are in this very full, you know, there's very elaborate floral borders. There's oftentimes birds or sort of pastoral-like scenes, usually beautiful, elegant alphabets. You know, I would say that they're influenced by the Berlin woolwork designs that were also coming out at the time. But I'm curious why this style, how it became popular, you know, what was going on that this became the style of the time in the late 1800s. So if any of you have any information that you want to share on that, I would love to know it. Or if you know of any particular books that talk about French samplers, I would love to expand my knowledge and understanding of those. So that is Leah Letourneur, 1894. And I do not speak French, so I'm sorry if I butchered that name. Certainly not my intention. So that's that. I wanted to tell you too, coming up in October, so I am taking a couple of weeks off of work. I'd originally hoped to go on a trip to England and Ireland this year. Had to cancel it, but I decided to keep the time. So I'm going to have a week of stitching at home and just have a week of downtime. And then the second week, on October 8th and 9th, I'm going to Tulsa, Oklahoma, to a workshop with Teresa Vanette of Shakespeare's Peddler at the Silver Needle in Tulsa. Now that workshop is also, they're having two sessions. One, the 8th and 9th that I'm going to, that's a Wednesday and Thursday. And yeah, pretty sure that's Wednesday and Thursday, not Thursday, Friday. But then that weekend on the 10th and 11th is also another workshop with Teresa. That one I believe is full. The 10th and 11th I think is full. But last I checked, they were saying that there's still space in the workshop on the 8th and 9th. So if you're anywhere in the Tulsa or surrounding area and want to check into that, that would be a lot of fun. And if you're going to be there, I would love to meet you. I know it's going to be a small group. I'm going down with a friend of mine from here in Weston where I live and another friend of hers from Kansas City. We're all driving down together and we'll enjoy doing that in October. So I know also coming up, the ladies from the attic have announced that the sign up for Sampler Symposium is coming up on September 29th. If you're seeing me before that, that sign up is coming up. Generally, I go to Sampler Symposium. This year, I'm sad to say I won't be, but that's because I didn't tell you last time I totally spaced it, which I find it hard to believe I could space out this, but I got into a retreat next year at Hobby House Needleworks, a retreat with Nicola Parkman, Kathleen Littleton and Ray Niles. That's next year in September. And kind of my thought process was, because I know that one was a hot commodity as well, I thought, okay, I'm going to try and get into this because I've never been, for two reasons. I've never been to Hobby House, and like most people, that's like a bucket list store that we all want to experience and shop at or go to a retreat at least once in our stitchy lives. But secondly, they had released what was going to be kind of the name or the title of their workshop, and it was called Imagination and Emotion. The Needle Speaks. And when I heard that title, I mean, you guys who know me, like, is that not my cup of tea to a T or what? Imagination and emotion and letting your needle, or the needle does speak, and being open to hearing it. So yeah, I had to try and get in that. So my thought process was, I knew at the time that registration was open for that if I didn't get in, I would still have Sampler Symposium, but I couldn't do both. I mean, I don't have unlimited resources and unlimited time. I still work and I still have bills to pay, so I can't do it all, although I'd love to. But I was one of the lucky few that got into Hobby House, and it wasn't because I know Ray or anything. I didn't pull any strings. I got a ticket. And so therefore I knew that I wouldn't also be able to do Sampler Symposium. And I would love to be able to do both. There's some great lineup of instructors that they're going to have. So I hope you, those of you who want to learn more about samplers, will go to and hope you can get into Sampler Symposium, because definitely the lineup this year. Some of the familiar faces that have been there in years past, but some new ones also. So you definitely want to look into that. And if it's something that interests you, I hope you get in. And I have also, like most of us, been watching all my favorite floss tubers. There are a couple of them that I wanted to specifically draw your attention to. There's a channel called A Dutch Stitcher, a gal named Hanneke. I love her channel, and it's great. You know, I like watching people from other countries and seeing what they're working on, what's the same as the things that we do and what's different. And Hanneke also does some designing, and she just finished oh my gosh, a gorgeous detailed floral piece that was inspired by something she saw in a museum that was like from a needlepoint settee. Beautiful. Anyway, she has started a series that she's calling a Stitchy Chat, where she has been interviewing some other designers and FlossTube people who you might be familiar with. And she's talked to Andrew, the runner stitcher. She's talked to Sarah from Sarah's Stitchy Spot. She talked to Jacob de Graaf from Modern Folk Embroidery. She's talked to Barbara of Stitching and Tea with B. And most recently, she talked to Carrie, who is the dyer behind Roxy Floss Co. Linen and Floss. And I've enjoyed every one of those interviews. I've seen all of them. I really enjoyed Carrie particularly because she was talking about, again, the process of dyeing and choosing colors, and how she comes to what things influence her, and how she's choosing what colors she knows they don't have in their already vast lineup, and what holes she's wanting to fill. So if that's anything that interests you, I would definitely recommend Hanneke. Dutch Stitcher is her regular FlossTube channel, and then she has a Stitchy Chat series. So I will link that below. And then Audrey from Stitch Bead has most recently started doing a few videos, FlossTube extras, that she's calling Stitch With Me. And one of them, she was specifically kind of showing how to do eyelet stitches. So if you've never done those, that might be a really good video for you to take a look at. Another one she did was how to stitch over one with linen, you know, one floss thread over one linen thread, because that gets intimidating to some folks, and you might not even feel like you could choose a particular design because of the amount of over one stitching. So she focused on how she tackles that, and hopefully makes it seem a little less intimidating for you. So maybe you might enjoy that one as well. And then she had another one that I found really interesting called just how to, you know, begin a project. And by that I mean, you know, how does she prepare her floss? How does she measure where she's going to place a design on her blank piece of linen? She showed how she starts a motif. She uses a kind of, not a waist knot, or although in a most recent video she showed about the pin stitch, but how she uses a tail, and she puts her needle in from the top of the fabric, leaving a little tail. She kind of determines what the path of her stitching is going to be. So she angles or places her needle in thread in such a way that as she stitches, she gets that piece of loose thread on the back caught up in her stitches. I hadn't attempted anything like that before. I hold mine on the back and I'm turning it over, you know, and catching my tail underneath my stitches too, but I just hadn't seen that approach to it before. I just found it interesting, and I thought you guys might too. And she said she might do more of those. So I would just direct you to Audrey's channel, Stitch Stitch Bead, because she's got some interesting stuff. She's also she stitches a lot of reproduction samplers, Hands Across the Sea ones particularly, but she stitches a lot with 100.3 silks, and talks a little bit about how she does that. So I thought you might be interested in those too. I have another couple of channels that I like to watch just for inspiration. And one of those that's relatively new to me, but this lady has been around for a little while. It's not cross-stitch related, but it fits for us. It's called Snapdragon Life. And it's a British or Scottish woman named Jane Lindsey. She's had different iterations to her life. She's been an art curator, a commercial flower grower, a textile artist, and she's very interested in heritage, crafts, and history, and how we can bring those things into present time. And she likes to talk about process and inspiration and what things inspire us and how to stay inspired and lead a more creative life. So I think that if that's at all something that you're interested in, you might really enjoy Jane's channel called Snapdragon Life. And then, you know, if you've been around here for a while, I love things about Scotland. A couple of you guys have recommended to me a channel about a Scottish American guy living in Scotland. It's called The American Highlander. I had already seen it. YouTube had already suggested it to me, so I've been watching that. Now, the next two channels I'm going to tell you about don't have anything to do with stitching, but if you like, I mean, you might just find them interesting. American Highlander is a guy named Jason. I think he's maybe in his 40s, I would say, early 40s, an American, having married a Scottish woman, and he's living in the Highlands of Scotland, and he unabashedly loves it, and he takes you around some different beautiful scenic locations and talks about those. But he also talks about the reality of being an American person living in another country, Scotland obviously in particular, and what that's like for him. And so you might enjoy American Highlander. And then just for pure comfort and oftentimes delight, I happened on a channel, this young man, I saw his first one. It was recommended to me probably the day he posted his first one. YouTube knows what I like. This channel is called Rewilding Jude, and it's a young British man. I would say he's 30-ish. I'm gonna say maybe early 30s. Also living in Scotland. He recently, I'm gonna say within the last year, I think, lost both of his parents. Not at the same time, but within, I think, close proximity. He moved from a more urban part of Scotland to a more rural part of Scotland, bought himself a cottage that was kind of run down, but habitable, so not, you know, totally derelict or anything. He's living in this place. And he's wanting to just live a more sustainable lifestyle. And he, like most people, when they lose parents, are kind of wondering about their station in life. They, you know, might get depressed or sad or just wonder, you know, how can I live a more meaningful life? And he's going about doing that in the way that works for him. And what I love about this channel, it's kind of vlog style. He posts every Sunday, is when I see them. And I look forward to him. I watch it when I'm having lunch on Sundays. He is very self-deprecating. He doesn't have any illusions, Jude, about what his skills are and where his skills are lacking. And he talks about that and where he's had some failures and what he's doing. And he most recently has been working for quite a while on building a chicken coop, and he recently finished it and got some chickens. And I am telling you, having followed his journey of putting his place together and focusing on building this coop and everything that went with it and all his successes and failures with the coop, it taking longer than he ever thought it would. And then he finally finished it and got his chickens. I think everybody that watched that with him, we probably all had tears in our eyes, and we're so proud of him for having accomplished this. So I just love his channel, Rewilding Jude. So I'm sharing it. I think you might like it too. Anything, you know, right now in the times that we're living in, if we can find some joy and delight and create beauty in the world, that's what we need to be able to do. Sometimes it feels really fleeting, and we wonder if it's worthwhile, but it, oh my gosh, it sure is. It definitely is. So I'm just looking around. I think I have shown you everything that I wanted to show you today. I want to close today with a bit of a poem by the poet Mary Oliver, author and poet Mary Oliver. It's called The Song for Autumn. And I know, you know, it's hard to be grounded right now sometimes for me, with so many things going on. There's been some stress at work, and for a person who feels things deeply, the things going on in the world can throw me off course. So being grounded is something that can sometimes be elusive. But I've been doing a lot of breathing and reading things that kind of place me in the moment, and stitching, of course, stitching to the point that I cost myself some repetitive stress. But anyway, let's talk about A Song for Autumn by Mary Oliver. So take a deep breath. Settle in so you can receive these words. Song for Autumn by Mary Oliver. Don't you imagine the leaves dream now, how comfortable it will be to touch the earth instead of the nothingness of the air and the endless freshets of wind. And don't you think the trees, especially those with mossy hollows, are beginning to look for the birds that will come, 6, a dozen, to sleep inside their bodies? And don't you hear the goldenrod whispering goodbye, the everlasting being crowned with the first tuffets of snow? The pond stiffens, and the white field over which the fox runs so quickly brings out its long shadows. The wind wags its many tails, and in the evening, the piled firewood shifts a little, longing to be on its way. That is Song for Autumn by Mary Oliver. Thank you so much for being with me today, sharing this time, stitching with me, sharing yourselves with me. I appreciate you so much, and I thank you. I'll see you again probably in about 3 weeks' time. It'll probably be after I get back from my retreat or workshop, actually at Shakespeare's Peddler, with Teresa Vanette of Shakespeare's Peddler, but at Silver Needle in Tulsa. I'm sure I'll have plenty of stitchy goodness to share and things that I've worked on. So until I see you again, thank you, everybody. Namaste. Bye-bye now.